Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Secret Sunday session today. Today, I'm joined by Cooper Chapman from the Good Human Factory, and today we're going to be talking about what Cooper does in the mental health space because he's making waves at the moment in help to prevent suicide, as well as starting that really amazing conversation around positive mental health. So we're going to dive into those topics today. But to kick us off, though, like always, Cooper, for those people that are not aware of who are you and what is it that you do with yourself?
Thanks for the beautiful introduction. So I guess who am I? I'm a curious person who's just trying to become the best version of himself and hopefully inspire people around me to do the exact same thing. So I grew up as down in Sydney's Northern Beaches, professional surfer for my last 15 years of my life, basically. And then the last 18 months or to 2 years, really, I've sidestepped and started to build a business called the Thegoodhumanfactory, which is just about connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies. I feel like the education system is missing quite a lot of points when it comes to mental health, and I've learned some great things along my journey, and I just love getting to share it with other people, have conversations on my podcast, and yeah, just try and show the world that there's different ways to see the world and show people that there's some very simple things that we can all be doing daily that do have a positive effect on our mental health.
That's amazing. And you obviously said that you started off and continue today to surf. And then you did sidestep into starting the Good Human Factory. Why start this business and organization?
I mean, so the story goes a little like this. When I was quite young, I lost an uncle to suicide, and then I'd watch my dad struggle with his mental health quite a bit throughout my teen years. So I was always very aware that mental health might be something that may become an issue in my life or mental illness. And I was always very forward thinking. What can I do to take care of my own mental health? I was always reading books and trying to find little ways to benefit not specifically my mental health, but throughout being a professional athlete, especially being quite successful as a junior, I was always looking for ways to get the edge on the competition and began to realize that there was a lot of great mental tips that you could do to basically perform better. Fast forward a few years, I never had any idea to start a mental health business or a social enterprise. And something happened that was the catalyst that made me do it. I was um, sitting around the dinner table with my parents, my three sisters, two younger, one older, and my youngest sister was in her last year of high school back in, I think it was 2019. Anyway, she came home and said that one of the boys in her year had taken his life. And that was just such a hard thing to hear. Young people taking their life is something that none of us want to hear. We don't want to hear anyone's taking their life, but young people to me is just the worst. And as we kind of all do, a few days went by, we posted an Instagram story, mental health matters, and life goes on. And then 2 weeks later, she came home, same situation, mum, dad around the dinner table, three sisters, and my youngest sister once again said another friend had taken his life. And that was just something that really shook me. I was like, there's kids in my local area that are having such a hard time that they are making such final decisions like suicide, and I'm traveling the world as a pro surfer, living the best life ever. Like, what am I doing to help my local community and the people around me with their challenges? So I went to an old school teacher and said to him, is there any way I can maybe come in and speak to some of the students about my journey and the lessons I've learned along the way? Because I know a lot of the stuff that I do, I never got taught at school. And maybe as a young pro surfer, it might inspire some kids to develop these skills and strategies from a younger age. So that was 2.5 years ago now, and started as just this little idea. And if I knew how much work was going to go into it, I may not have done it. But yeah, 2.5 years later, I've spoken to over 25,000 students at schools all around Australia, from WA to South Australia, Tasmania, Queensland, Victoria, New South Wales. Spoken to thousands of corporates, got a podcast that's had over 500,000 downloads, and yeah, just really trying to make mental health a bit cooler. And there's obviously a lot of break the stigma charities and organizations out there and start conversations, but I'm all about empowering the individual to develop skills that can change our world individually.
Congratulations on that journey. I mean, wow, to think, as you said, where you started to where you are now and actually wanting to make change. That's phenomenal, honestly. I mean, looking at this space as well, we do hear a lot of conversations around mental health and people wanting to prevent suicide and people wanting to start the conversation in this space. Although it is great, as you did mention, there seems to follow like a bit of lack of action. Do you think that more needs to be done instead of just starting the conversation?
Yeah, I think mental health and mental illness get very combined in the conversation. Every time you say to someone, "Oh, mental health," straight away we think depression, suicide, anxiety. But the way that I try and communicate it and the way I try and encourage my audience to really think about it is mental health and mental illness are two pretty different things. Mental illness is something that 20% of Australians will be diagnosed with statistically, but mental health is something that 100% of us have, and we should all be doing things to take care of it. So my whole angle is to encourage people to develop those simple habits and those values that if we live by, our mental health somewhat takes care of itself. But for the majority of us, we're not sleeping right, we're not eating right, our relationships are average, our diet's bad, and then we run into a mental illness. But for me, it's quite often a lifestyle problem. So my whole angle is to really try and just inspire people to be like, you know what, we all need to be doing stuff. If the 80% of us who don't have a mental illness all pick up these solid skills, then that might move up to 85%, which in turn is going to make the mental illness rate smaller. So my whole angle is a little different to the, I guess, generic mental health organization, which is really helping those people who are struggling with mental illness. But my whole angle is, yeah, to empower and inspire people that might not be struggling with their mental health to develop skills so that when that challenging time inevitably comes, that happens to all of us throughout life, things like grieving when people pass away, things like relationship breakups, things like financial troubles, like all these things that we all go through. I believe if we have solid skills in place, things like meditation daily, things like gratitude, kindness, mindfulness, all these things that are now scientifically proven have a positive effect, but most of us aren't doing it. So, yeah, my angle is a little bit different, but yeah, I've had some really good feedback that the stuff I talk about is having a positive impact with the community that I try and talk to.
Mm. And I mean, we look at the taboos and we look at the stigmas that are associated with, say, implementing positive mental health, a lot of those practices. Why do you think they're there? Why do you think people are scared to sometimes embrace things like meditation and gratitude in their daily practice?
I think, to be honest, because it does take a little bit of work. If there was a pill that you could take that was going to calm your anxiety, that was going to do all these things, that all these like modalities like breath work, ice baths, meditation, gratitude, like all this stuff just takes a bit of effort. But a lot of us are just so busy and so distracted that we don't realize that we need to be doing these things if we want to live a life that is full of, yeah, happiness and joy. And I think so many of us are, yeah, just distracted and sort of happy, not happy, but just I'm trying to think of this saying, I'm going to butcher it, but it's the certainty of unhappiness is, oh, I'm going to butcher this. Sorry,
That's right.
this is a terrible take for a podcast, but basically, I just believe that people are happy with, or not happy, but people. Oh, what's the word? The fear of uncertainty beats the certainty. I don't know. I'm kind
I
of
get your intention. So
you
I
get my intention, but basically, people just find it quite difficult to step out of their comfort zone and try something different. And as well, I think when it comes to a lot of these modalities, people try it once or try it twice and go, oh, it didn't work for me. It's like going to the gym and doing a sit up and then trying to look in the mirror for a six pack the next day. It doesn't work like that. We need to develop these things as habits and try and add them into our life daily.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And often we run at new things and things that I think typically positive mental health practices have had this almost term associated with them that someone's hippie if they're doing that. And that then brings it, yeah, that brings it then to me. Why were you curious at the start to go down this path and look at more positive mental health practices?
I think obviously for me, it came from being an athlete. I was always very curious, how can I get performance gains? But then in turn, I started to realize, wait, these things aren't improving just my performance, they're improving my overall well-being. Learning to meditate gave me clearer thoughts so I could perform better, but it also just allowed me to, yeah, settle my mind and calm down. Breath work I started doing because of the performance benefits we get, but there's also these corresponding mental health benefits. And I began to, yeah, just be passionately curious about how can I get the best out of myself from my sport, but then it turned into for my overall well-being. And I think gone are the days where it's just athletes that are trying to be high achievers. or like then it kind of started to become like CEOs are trying to become high achievers. And now it's like the information's there, the internet's free. You can go and find all of these modalities and try all this stuff basically for free now, but it takes a bit of work. So yeah, I think for me, it just came from this curiosity. How can I become the best version of myself? And I think we should all be trying to find little things that are going to make our life better always.
Mm. And I mean, you look at your lifestyle, and as you said, you are very busy now with all the things that you are running currently. And a lot of people would use that as an excuse, as I'm very busy, I don't have the time in the day to do that. What is an example for you? How do you fit those mindful practices into your day, even though you're one of probably the busiest people that is going around at the moment as well?
It's funny. We all have that excuse of I don't have time, but I feel like almost every single person listening right now can go on their phone, look at their screen time, and if your social media screen time at the end of the day is less than an hour or less than 30 minutes, then yeah, okay, maybe you don't have time to fit these things in. But I reckon almost every single person will look, and by the end of the night, their social media is more than 30 minutes. So we all have time. We all have time. We just make the excuse that we don't. And these things don't take all day. The one thing that I really encourage people to do is try and give 1% of your day to your mental health. 1% of your day is around about 14 minutes. So the way I say to people, try and do 10 minutes of meditation in the morning or at some stage throughout the day. Try and at night, just either think or write down 3 things that went well during the day that you're grateful for. Spend a few minutes on that. There's close to 14 minutes that you've given to your mental health, whereas most of us can't even do that. So it's just trying to be honest with yourself. Like mental health is the biggest killer of people aged 14 to 44 in Australia. It's a very important thing. Yet a lot of us aren't doing much directly for our mental health each day. So I think if we can just, yeah, start taking a bit more responsibility and accountability ourselves, then we can start developing these little daily habits that just make you feel better. And like I have a thing on Instagram called the 1% Good Club where every single day I send a guided 10-minute meditation on these Instagram group chats. Every night I write my 3 gratitudes. I send them into the groups. It started like 2 years ago now, but now there's 9 group chats with about 100 in each. And there's been over 250,000 gratitudes written in over the last 2 years, which is just so cool. Just people trying to get a bit of accountability because we're 800% more likely to maintain a healthy habit or a new habit if we have an accountability group. So I was like, oh, if I can send this meditation in the morning, it'll make me do it. And if I can do the gratitudes each night, it'll make me do it. But then I'll inspire, well, not inspire, but just prompt the groups. And yeah, now it's completely grown into these 1,000 people from all around the world, all strangers that do their gratitudes and meditation each day. And yeah, like I said, there's been close to 200,000 gratitudes, I think, written in over the past 2 years, which is just, I mean, you can't even measure the impact that would have had on people sitting there each day writing their gratitude. So if anyone listening right now wants to join, it's completely free. It always will be. All you have to do is send at Thegoodhumanfactory a DM on Instagram saying, I want to join the club. And yeah, you'll get added into a free group of a bunch of strangers who do a bit of gratitude each day.
How amazing. And as you said, accountability is such, I feel, a necessity in a space like this, because when you feel that you're doing it alone, so often you can just hear those excuses and listen to them, rather if you know that you're part of a group and part of a community. And especially when it comes to mental health, I mean, you look at physical health, or a lot more people will go to the gym if they know they're going to a class or going with a friend. But yeah, having that space available, that's phenomenal. And to see how it's increased, congratulations, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. It's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, to be honest, because it's just something that's free. Anyone can do it. There's no expectation. You can leave whenever you want, but it's just a good platform for people to have that little reminder of gratitude each day. And yeah, like I said, the sheer number of people who have got involved now is yeah, pretty special.
And I think as well, a lot of people get confused of where to start with the rise, I feel, of social media, and there's so much information out there, and you can just look up meditation or look up gratitude and it'll give you 50 different answers. And I feel that that's a lot in a lot of these spaces, is that people want to start, but then they get so overwhelmed and confused of where do I go? How do I do this? That they go throw their hands in the air and go, okay, I don't have time now. So I feel that having a platform where, yeah, you can be guided through that is really essential. And do you think that, I know as well, as I mentioned, meditation has so many different categories and so many different things and times that you can go off. Where is the best place to start for someone? Is it a guided meditation, or is it just sitting with themselves?
I think a great way to start is, like you just said, just sit by yourself somewhere that's quiet for 10 minutes, sit with your back up straight, and just see if you can sit there and breathe. Start your timer next to you and just sit there and breathe without looking at it, and see how close you can get to 10 minutes and see how many thoughts go through your head. And it'll give you a great example of how busy our minds are and the importance of being able to slow them down sometimes. So I think that's a good way to start. And then to get into it, there's, like you said, so much out there right now. But a few of the ways I encourage people, either join the 1% Club. It's a great way to start. You can click the YouTube link each day and do the meditation. Download an app, either Headspace, Calm. There's so many great ones out there. Or just type in on YouTube guided meditation. And I think the best way to start is that guided one, where you can really kind of just listen. It gives you a bit more to follow. It kind of distracts you from your thoughts. But then the more that we can start to really try and be there in silence is where I really find the gains when it comes to meditation. For me, it just allows me to kind of witness my thoughts and realize how frequent they are and try and really just detach from them. But yeah, I think I heard something from my friend who's a meditation coach, and he said the best time to learn to meditate is 20 years ago, and the second best time to learn is today. So I think the more we kind of have this anxiety of, oh, I don't know where to start, it just slows us down. I think just starting, there's no perfect meditator. There's literally no good or bad meditators. There's just someone who meditates and somebody who doesn't. And yeah, even my friend who's a coach who's been coaching for 12 years, he said it usually takes between 8 to 12 minutes for him to start to really slow his mind down. And he's been doing it every day for 12 years. So don't think because you did it twice and your mind didn't stop, you're bad and it's not for you. It's about the practice of it, and it's not what you get directly after. Don't finish it and go, oh my God, I feel so good. It's what happens throughout your day. You start to be able to create a bit of space between something happening and wanting to react to it, and then being able to respond to it. And I think that sort of react to respond difference for me is massive.
Do you think people are almost scared of being bored and sitting with their feelings?
Absolutely. I think all of us are a bit scared to sit with our thoughts and really actually witness them, because as soon as we get that opportunity, what do 99% of us do? We pull our phone out, we distract ourselves now. It's very rare that any of us really sit there. Like most of us nowadays are watching Netflix to go to bed. Like, we're not actually sitting with our thoughts. Like, you know what I mean? It's very rarely that we're sitting without our phone. Like, most people now jump in the shower and put music on. It's like, the solitude that we all have has just diminished over the last couple of years. So I think it's important we do bring that back so we can, yeah, sort out and organize what's really going on up there.
And it's quite funny because that's where almost the self-care space has gone as well. You know, for example, straight away when you said the shower music one, I know so often people will say, oh, but that's my self-care. You know, I put on some music and I go for a walk, or I have a shower and I put my music on, or I go to a class where it's almost, yes, that's great if that makes you feel good, but at the same time, it's almost like we're still running away from just sitting with ourselves.
Yeah, it's a good one. Everyone always says like, oh, running's my meditation and stuff, which I do understand. And there is other forms of meditation. But for me, meditation is the practice of trying to sit still and just be there with your thoughts, because yeah, it can be quite difficult at times. I think a lot of us are, yeah, really running away and trying to avoid having to check in with ourselves. And that's where I feel like so many of us end up really sliding down that poor end of the mental health spectrum without realizing, because we are so fearful of actually checking in with ourselves. And yeah, it can be quite difficult to have those honest conversations with yourself, to point out your flaws. And that's, I think, what maturity really is. Maturity is when you stop blaming. Maturity is not an age thing. I've got a lot of adults and friends, parents in my life that just are full of complaints and always blaming something on their downfalls. And for me, that's the ultimate sign of immaturity, is when you blame everything on everything else rather than taking responsibility. So for me, yeah, those honest questions and pointing out your own flaws, like, it turns into a bit of a game. You just try and get better. And when somebody points out one of your flaws, rather than biting at it, trying to find the truth in it. And what can I learn from this person criticizing me? What can I get out of it? And yeah, I think meditation is just a really good way to, yeah, sort of check in on your ego and check in on those thoughts that are coming through, and yeah, take a bit of time to actually slow down and see where we're at, because life seems to be moving at a faster pace. Our phones are getting faster, the internet's getting faster. Every year, everything's moving quicker, and we're not taking time to slow down and check in with ourselves. And I think that's really one of the main reasons why mental health statistics are really in a dire place at the moment.
And I mean, it sounds phenomenal, all the meditation and the gratitude practices, but is there a point as well where some people might look at this, that someone is not in a sound mind, and say them sitting with their thoughts is probably not great? Is there a point where meditation should not be implemented?
I mean, I'm going to put it straight out there and not be honest, like this is something I tell everyone, but I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm just super curious and just share with people things that I've learned through talking to different experts, talking to other people. But my biggest advice, if you're really struggling, is to go and see a psychologist, to go use the great resources we do have here in Australia, from seeing a GP, letting them know what you're struggling with. They can recommend you to a psychologist. Yeah, I think in Australia you get 10 free sessions through Medicare. So biggest recommendation if you're really struggling is definitely to see a psychologist. But I think when it comes to meditation, it does take time. Like I said, my friend who's a 10-year or 12-year meditation coach, takes 10 to 12 minutes. So if you're constantly having these thoughts, it's probably a good indicator that you need to try and learn whether meditation might not work for you. I have a lot of friends who can't meditate, so maybe try breath work. Oh, breath work didn't really work. Maybe I'll try yoga. Oh, yoga didn't work. Trying to continually step outside and find these different things that can work for us. And if those things aren't working, absolutely go on SSRIs or use whatever a professional recommends. But I just think a lot of us need to have a look at our own lifestyles, our sleep, if we're getting enough sleep, our nutrition. Are we eating whole foods, or are we eating stuff out of packets from Woolies and Coles every meal? Are we getting enough exercise each day? Like, all of these elements have such a big impact, which can then give us a bit more clarity in our thoughts when we do sit down to meditate.
Mm. I'm interested to know, I mean, you said you spoke to a lot of different schools, and generally it would be a lot of young people. How do young people take on this message, and how can, say, a parent encourage a young person to take on these practices?
Well, that's why I'm so passionate about, while I'm still quite young and still kids see me as hopefully someone that is a little bit more relatable than your psychologist in their 40s or 50s, or ex-NRL or AFL player coming in who's kind of on the back end of, or like past their career. I mean, up until the last few months, I was still competing professionally at the top level. So I I try not to overload the information. I feel like when I was at school, if I went in and did a full hour talking about meditation, kids would get over it. So I just sort of I call myself like the conduit of information. I want to inspire and expose kids to go and find this stuff themselves. And I remember I got told about meditation when I was 14, 15, 16, and I didn't get into it and do it. I got told about yoga, gratitude, all of these things for a long time. And I don't expect every kid to run out and go and do it every day, but I just know that that constant exposure, whether it's they see me once and then they see a podcast and then the next person, it's about the sort of touch points throughout your life. And I feel like I was very lucky to have a lot of those touch points through my athletic career. As an athlete, I work with sports psychologists, I worked with all these people, and those constant exposures have led me to where I am now. So when I go to schools, I know that not every kid's going to go and meditate every day, but at least now they've been exposed. Oh, wait, this cool pro surfer, and he showed me this video with all of these other world champion athletes and Olympians. And wait, these guys are doing that. Oh, maybe it is kind of cool to do this stuff. Like, mental health doesn't always have to be this depression, anxiety topic. It can be this performance, like overall well-being topic. So I just expose like very simple little tips, stuff like, how mindful are you each day? When you eat, are you putting your phone down and you tasting the flavors? When you showing up with your friends and family, are you looking them in the eyes? Are you communicating effectively? It's just about taking awareness of our own little flaws and trying to improve on them. Easy way to practice gratitude each day is, I say to students, when you brush your teeth at night, you're already standing there in front of the mirror, just think in your head, what are 3 things that I enjoyed about today? And it's just about changing these thought patterns and steering the ship in a little few degrees in a different direction. And in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, the ship's in a completely different place. And I'd almost guarantee, if you're practicing meditation, gratitude, kindness, mindfulness, all of these really simple little skills, that ship and your life is going to be in a different place. It's going to be more positive than it would be if you kind of stayed on the path of not living by solid values.
Yeah, it's amazing. And even those little simple tips, they're so small and they're so simple that can be implemented, as you said, every day without even thinking about it. And I think that's really good advice and tools to offer people. And I look at that as well and go, you mentioned before how sometimes people can be quite negative. Do you feel I feel sometimes, and I sense it amongst the community, that people do like to sit in the negative and they like to not grow, because progression is scary, and being almost, I don't like to say it, but the victim mentality is sometimes safer. How do you get people out of that and encourage them that, you can be the best version of yourself if you just work?
I mean, I do talk a lot about victim and hero mentality, and it's pretty it's sad how often a lot of it, like I've gone into victim mentality many times in my life, but the more that we can pull ourselves out of it and be like, well, what sort of life do I want to have? Do I want to blame and do I want to make excuses? Or do I want to be the hero of my story and create a fun, happy, exciting life? And I I'll give you this good metaphor that I learned from a friend of mine um who's a like jiu-jitsu black belt and master, and he uses this metaphor of tigers because every year when I'd go to Hawaii for my surf events, I'd go and compete, and in between my two events, I'd train with this guy, and he was very wise and would have great sort of wise knowledge for us. And after the first event, would come in and would complain about, oh, the judges underscored me, or the fins weren't right. And he'd always use this tiger metaphor. So it goes like this. He goes, the tiger wakes up every day hungry and he has to hunt to survive. And a deer wakes up every day and kind of has to avoid tigers to survive. And this one day, this tiger spots a deer and they both start running full speed, one to survive, one to survive. And the deer does a sharp cut to the right and the tiger slips behind it in the mud and misses the opportunity. The tiger doesn't go, oh, the judges underscored me. Oh, my fins weren't right. Oh, my board was a little too thick. No, 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 no. The tiger goes home hungrier. He goes home, he sharpens his claws, and he comes back the next day a little bit better to the hunt. And when you take upon yourself what's happening to you in your life and you start taking responsibility, that's when you start taking over your life and you start controlling your life rather than letting your circumstances dictate you. And when I heard that, I try and encourage people to go like, think of yourself like the tiger. Next time you want to make an excuse, next time you want to blame your situation on somebody else, and quite often it is out of our control, but you don't get anywhere by blaming and by being the victim. You get somewhere by taking control and going, you know what, I want to take over my life. And that's something I try and really look at when I'm falling into that victim mindset and wanting to complain and wanting to make excuses. I go, you know what, this isn't going to get me any further. I'll go sharpen my claws and come back a little bit better.
Are there still things that you find that you're working on?
Oh, all the time. I struggle with everything. And I bounce around. I'm like, my routine's like so out of whack because I'm like traveling and moving around so much with work. So I struggle with like keeping my routine and making sure I get yeah, enough sleep, making sure I'm eating right, like all these little things. But I'm just constantly looking at my flaws. I'm like, how can I get better? And there's so many things that I'm always trying to improve on. Like, I mean, what's a good one that I'm trying to improve on right now? I've gone through a stage where like I used to read every day, and right now, because I've been busy, I've kind of like only been reading a little bit, which for me, reading is my main way to learn new information to then be able to pass back onto my community. So I'm like, all right, I need to get back into my reading as well. My fitness has gone so out the door. I used to train so full time because of being an athlete. And then because of that, I'm now not competing, so I don't really have to train in the gym 3 or 4 days a week. So I'm just dealing with this internal of like, oh, you're like lazy piece of shit, really. Like you're not training, you're not working out as much as you can. So it's for me trying to like not be the victim and be like, oh, you need to do better, you need to be more, and try and sit in that and be like, that's okay to not be at that level in your physicality right now because you don't need to with the career path you're on now. So I was just trying to like continue to evolve and not be too hard on myself because yeah, we all have flaws, and instead of being hard on yourself and um yeah, letting your self-esteem get down, be excited by those flaws. Wow, this is places that I can get better and improve.
Do you miss surfing?
I still surf all the time. Like I still surf I mean, definitely not every day, but I still surf frequently. So I don't miss surfing. I guess at times I miss competing, but I also don't miss competing. I got to do 15 years traveling the world surfing with my friends. Got to a career sort of high rank between sort of like 35 and 50 in the world for 5 to 10 years. So I look back with nothing but gratitude. I wanted to get to a higher ranking than I did, and I wanted to be able to like achieve more. And for a long time, the last few years of my career, I did look at it and go, oh, I wish I was better and I wish I got to a higher rank. But now with the work I do, I'm like, I can either look back at my career with two different mindsets. One that I didn't achieve enough, or one that I traveled the world and had the best life ever surfing for 10 years. Like,
Mm.
what's the point of having that mindset moving forward that, oh, I wish I did better? It's like, well, it's happened. I can look back and just love everything about it. And now I can move on to this next chapter. So
Mm.
I don't miss competing, to be honest, at all now with that mindset. So yeah, it's nice.
That's amazing. And to think like how amazing you did also in the sport to be competing at such a competitive level. How did you cope with that pressure?
It was hard throughout my junior career. I had a lot of success and I used to base a lot of my self-worth and identity on my career when I was competing and doing well. I was really stoked and happy. My whole identity was wrapped around Cooper Chapman, the surfer. My friends would all pat me on the back. Well done, you're doing so well. Your family is all stoked when you're doing well, and then you do not too well, and it's all, oh, it's all right. We still love you, and it's like it's like this language that sort of comes out that it's like you are attached to your career. And then my sports psych challenged me and said, I want you to stop basing your self worth and identity on your career and your achievements, and I want you to start basing it on how well you can live to your values. And that was just this sort of big perspective change in my mind. Like, oh wait, I don't have to just be the pro surfer. I can also be Cooper Chapman, the human, and develop these strong values. And that's really what I tried to do throughout my career. And there's times that I'd go back into the victim, and the pressure would get to me, and I'd feel super sort of low and insignificant. But then, yeah, throughout my career, I sort of continued to grasp and grow this concept of what are your values, Cooper? What are your values? And it's obviously really springboarded me into my career post surfing, but it also allowed me to really enjoy the tail end of my career because even when I lost, I was like, oh, well, I'm still traveling around the world going surfing. Like I've won. So
Mm.
I think, yeah, there was times where I did struggle with, I guess, my mental health and the pressure of being an athlete. But I look back and it's the adversity that sort of made me the person I am today and the resilience that I feel like I can show now into my next career. Yeah, just nothing but positives came out of my surf career in hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, and you look at, you say you had to find values along that way. How does someone so young find out what they do value and what are their priorities?
I think I just sort of started to look around at the people I look up to, the people who really inspire me, the people who I think are having a positive impact in the world. And it was just something that I have always thought. I've always had this sort of guilt. Like, why am I so lucky to be traveling the world surfing? Like, I've got the best life ever. And then, yeah, I just started to realize, you know what, there's more than just being an athlete. Like, I'm not really giving back to my community. And then I got challenged once again. My sports psych, I learned so much from him. He said to me, what's your philosophy in life? I want you to try and find your philosophy. And I was like, all right. So I sort of sat with that for a few days and then came back to him and he was like, so what is it? And I said, through hard work, dedication, and passion, being a positive influence on my peers and younger generations. And somewhat since having that philosophy and kind of getting really clear on what my why is, it allowed me to be like, that doesn't really do too much as a surfer, but that's I think where my career now in mental health came from is this, yeah, getting really clear on what my why is. And that, yeah, I think now I am living pretty true to that why of being, yeah, a positive influence on my peers, younger generations, and yeah, through hard work, dedication, and passion doing it. So that was a big turning point for me to start to question that. But I think for people who are young, going, oh, what are my values? Look around, read books, read other people's autobiographies, find where they found their purpose, and start to sort of pull that into your life and see similarities between other people's journeys and be curious when you talk to people, like when their story comes out, go, oh wow, that is something that matters to me. And yeah, it always evolves for me too. Like my values are always evolving, but it's just about always being, yeah, willing to change and willing to always seek out new and better ways to live.
I love that. And that's why I think I love as well the concept around the Good Human Factory. It's about being curious. And there's no pressure with that word. There's no pressure to do anything or to go seek information. It's just being open to the idea of actually looking at positive mental health practices. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal with what you've done and what you'll continue to do, both professionally and also with yourself. And I kind of then want to go into the Good Human Factory with what do you want people to actually get out of it?
I think the main thing is, like I said before, it's just connecting curious minds with simple mental health strategies. And we have a variety of ways that I do that. I have a workshop that I run with high schools and also corporates, basically an interactive keynote that goes for 60 minutes. So that's one way that I try and encourage people to learn these different skills through me sharing my story in a keynote version. Also, my podcast through speaking to different experts, through speaking to different people who have had incredible lives and listening to their stories with a curious mind. What could I learn from this person's story? And then also we do merchandise. Actually, today I've just dropped my biggest new merch range, which is really cool. It's called the Change Your World collection, because I felt like quite often we think in our head, oh, I don't have the power to change the world. What's the point? And then I started to think, yeah, it's a pretty average mindset to have those. So how can I make that into a positive thing and be like, well, we can't change the world, but you can change your world. So if you do these little things and make the people around your life a little bit better by telling them you're grateful for them, by smiling at a stranger, by picking up a bit of rubbish, throw it in the bin. Sure, you're not going to solve the pollution problem we have in the world, but your world that you're in will be a little bit cleaner because you threw a bit of rubbish out, which in turn will make you feel good. So the whole new merch range is called the Change Your World range. It's got a bunch of really simple messages like, what are you grateful for? Be kind to your mind. And it's just these sort of subtle subconscious messages that when someone walks past you, they read it and it makes them go, oh yeah, what am I grateful for? Oh yeah, I should be kind to my mind. So it's changing the world you're in by wearing our merch. So yeah, across all these different things, obviously the 1% Club as well that I chatted about earlier, just always just trying to connect people with different ways of thinking and inspire and encourage people that there's more than the prescribed way that mental health kind of is through the media and everything. Like with all these different practices, we can inspire each other and change our world for the better.
Awesome. And now I know the Good Human Factory has done a lot for many people out there, but what does it do for you?
Oh, it gives me purpose. I mean, I'm in a bit of a weird spot actually right now. I've been doing it for a few years and things are continuing to evolve. And because I have done almost everything myself, from growing the podcast to the merch to the workshops to everything, I'm just learning a lot. But what it does for me, yeah, like I said, it just gives me purpose. It's so nice to know that I wake up and everything basically that I do is to try and help other people make their life a bit better, which in turn is a great way to live. If I can call it a job now, it's become a profitable business for me. So it's great to know that I can have, I guess, a social enterprise that can make other people's lives better, but then also support myself and hopefully become quite successful in many ways, from helping people to financial success, which in turn will just lead to be able to help more people. So yeah, I'm just enjoying the experience of starting a business. It's something very different to being a professional athlete, but yeah, just really enjoying the journey. But yeah, it does a lot for me knowing that the stuff that I put out and the work that I do has a positive impact on others.
Do you feel like it's a different sort of proud moment than being a competitive surfer?
I think that's where that, like, being proud as an athlete, I felt like guilty. It's like I'm being proud because I'm really good at something. Like, it's quite simple-minded and ego-minded in hindsight, me looking back at it, and nothing against athletes. I'm so inspired by so many athletes. And they're all the athletes are my best friends. But for me, I was just like, I want to give back. I want to sort of climb that second mountain of service. I'd read a lot of books about other people, and the more very successful people that I'd met, who were unhappy, I was kind of like, you know what? The people that I really see who are happy are people who are out there really trying to help other people and share their story to help others. So that was kind of the path that I've taken for this next chapter of my life, which, yeah, it's really exciting. I'm really enjoying it.
Amazing. I love it. Now, final takeaways, tips. What are 3 things that you can suggest to people as some of the biggest either life lessons that you've learned or takeaways that you're continuing to pursue in your daily life?
I think one of the best ones is learn to meditate. First of all, join the 1% Club. It's a simple one. If you don't meditate, just be curious. All right, I hear enough people talk about it. Maybe I'll just try and do 5 minutes a morning. I'll just sit down for 5 minutes when I wake up. So learn to meditate is the first one. Second one as well, gratitude. Try and practice gratitude each day. I say to people, like, imagine you get like a metaphorical contact lens right now and you put it in both your eyes and it's your gratitude lenses. Try and see the world through a grateful lens. What are the things that are going well rather than the things that aren't going well? And the third one, I'll give you a quote that I really like that I try and live by. Actually, I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you two quotes that I try and live by that really help me. And the first one is, the act of confidence comes before the feeling of confidence. I feel like a lot of people really lack confidence and are waiting for that feeling to be able to lean in and do something. But I've learned that the act of confidence always comes before the feelings for me. So jump out of your comfort zone, act and try and trick your body and your mind that you're confident, own it. And then quite often the feeling will come after it. And the last quote I'll sort of finish on is one that I heard recently that's kind of around empathy and the importance of listening. And the quote goes, listen, don't just wait to talk. And once I started to really be aware of the amount of times that I wasn't actually listening to people, yeah, it's just really benefited my connections with people around me and yeah, the relationships that I have with them.
Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for jumping on today and sharing your story and also what you're doing. It's phenomenal and it's great. And on behalf of the community, thank you for everything that you're doing and all the conversations and the action that you are taking in this space. I think that you're doing a phenomenal job. And I'm so grateful that you were able to come on here and share your story today.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry about some of my blurts that didn't really make sense. I'm never actually like this, but I'm just under the pump right now, so I was just heads everywhere. But it's yeah, awesome to get to share my story with you and your community. Thank you so much for what you're doing as well. And yeah, hopefully everyone learned one or two little things about me and my life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Priorities, as you said, you got to find priorities.
That's
Um,
all.
Lastly, where can people find you? I know we did mention a few things here and there, but social media wise, and where can people follow what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, my personal social media is just at Cooper Chapman, very simple. The Good Human Factory is just same thing at The Good Human Factory. If you want to check out the workshops and the merch and whatnot, just thegoodhumanfactory.com. You can find everything on our website. And then my podcast, Good Humans with Cooper Chapman, you can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, all of those places. And yeah, that's probably the best places to find me.
Beautiful. Well, everybody go check out Cooper on all of his platforms. As I said, he's doing phenomenal work out there and really changing the waves in this mental health space so that we can really start implementing positive practices into our everyday life. Once again, thank you, Cooper. And thank you so much, everyone else out there, for joining us for another Secret Sunday session. I will catch you all very soon.